Oosha.
That'd be good, wouldn't it? That'd be good. Imagine if, just stapled to his chest.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Okay, I'm going to try. I've got a drink ready, so I don't need to nip off this time and do it. I've got my script. There we go. I've got my announcement written.
Good. It's your turn.
Ready. Here we go. Let's do this. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the O3C podcast. My name is Jonathan Dunn and I am joined by my friend Chris Dow.
Oh boy.
And we are trying to find our voice and chatting about video games. not even putting it on.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Okay, here we go. Announcements. This week's rally cry. No. This week's rally cry is to share the podcast on your social media platforms, please. Share a link to your favorite episode, the latest episode, our website, one of our videos, one of our articles. Share it on social media, tag a friend who you think would like to listen to the show, tag us as well, and we'll give you a big old like and a share too. If this type of reciprocal relationship is what you're after, then you can also pop over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/O3C Games. In exchange for pledging some monetary support to us from as little as £1 a week, you will then receive a whole bunch of bonus content from us, such as full bonus episodes, exclusive deleted scenes and outtakes, bonus video content, including video counterparts to these episodes, which are uncut and ad-free, and will also welcome you into the hallowed halls of our Discord server, where you can hang out with us and a bunch of other excellent people. Game on.
Lovely.
So, we're back. It's another week. We had a lovely play date last week, didn't we, Chris? Didn't we?
It was very, very tasteful.
Well, it was. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was a mixed bag last week. It was a shame to discuss Lost Your Marbles, but then Pick Pack Pup was fantastic. Bloom was fantastic, and the 9 other side-loaded games that I'd rampaged my way through across Europe were also interesting to talk about. But this week, we are reporting back on our latest FORTNIGHT challenge.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, I set Chris the task to play a fantastic little indie game called Astray, and I'm very excited to hear how you got on with that. Chris gave me a choice of playing a 3D platformer collectathon-ish type game called Poi, or a 3D platformer collection-a-thon-ish type game called Unbox. And I'll be telling you which of those I've chosen to play and how I've gotten on with that in a little bit. But first of all, what have we played this week? What have we played? Well, I tell you what, I'm going to tell you what I've played. And I'm going to kick off by just throwing a little bit of lip service to Poi. Because
didn't make the cut.
It didn't make the cut. It didn't make the cut. But I did want to touch on it here just a little bit, because it also compares to another game that I have played this week. That's not Unbox. I will be talking about Unbox later on. But I did have a go at Poi, and it really made me appreciate just how finely tuned the 3D Mario games are.
Oh,
because
yeah.
Whilst on paper Poi does everything a 3D Mario game does, I mean, everything from all of the mechanics and the way that it's structured and all of that stuff, but everything just feels a bit off. You know, it's a bit sloppy, it's a bit vague, and I appreciate the graphical style they're going for, but between like these low poly environments and then these strangely floaty controls, it felt just a bit more like a student trying to make a Mario clone than something I should take seriously in its own right.
I think we use this joke all the time, but it's very much we've got Mario 64 at home.
It is.
And it's fine. Like when I played it, I bought it for the Switch when the Switch was quite new. It was like an early physical release, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know this game." And I hadn't quite got as obsessed with collecting Switch games as I am now. But it was an early one to think like, "Oh, there's going to be stuff on this console that's kind of just a bit weird, a bit out there, that's probably not going to come to other platforms." And it never has. There's, you can buy it digitally other places, but not a physical cartridge or a CD or a DVD. So I was quite excited, and I enjoyed it for just being something different because I didn't have a massive library of stuff to play. Whereas these
better
days,
than what was that Snake game?
Snake Pass.
Snake Pass.
Yeah,
we all bought it. We all bought it because there was nothing else to play. It was poor. That was a poor game.
It's another one that you can't fault the ambition of trying something different, but you would have hoped that at some point in development, someone went, "Yes, this is different, but yes, it's also not any fun."
Yeah, exactly.
I genuinely hated playing it.
Hateful experience.
It's rare.
It was miserable. It reminded me. Snake Pass reminded me of when mobile phones took a little bit of a leap up, and Snake that came bundled on a Nokia all of a sudden was trying to be in 3D, and it ran at about 12 frames per second, and it was just like, it just felt a bit constipated.
Yeah, that's a good description actually.
Yeah.
A constipated 3D platformer.
Yeah. But Poi, in stark contrast, was to a new game that I picked up this week. I just read a review of it today, and I bought it, and it's called Lunistis.
Oh, that's a mouthful.
Lunistis. Lunistique. And it's another low poly 3D platforming affair, which is it's in the 32-bit 3D game style, unfortunately with a much higher frame rate and much tighter controls. But it sees you explore a variety of floating block-based stages, collecting paper cranes. They're just your rings or your coins. That's your collectible, and defeating enemies and trying to do so as quickly and as alive as you can, and get from one end to the other. It's a fantastic example of a developer focusing on getting a few simple things feeling perfect, because this game is just very, very nice to play. It reminded me a bit of Blue Fire in that respect, very fluid 3D controls, which are necessary to navigate, the increasingly complex 3D environs. But it's just great. It's got a great charm to it, with its visual style and its music as well. You've even got the option to put on a couple of filters if you really want that 32-bit style, including enforcing a 20 frames per second limit.
Jesus. Yeah, that's Sega Saturn to a T, isn't
it? Yeah. So you can whack that on, you can whack a CRT filter on, and it does, it feels like a PlayStation 1 game or a Saturn game. But obviously you don't play with those on because it's horrid. But it's less than a $5 as well, despite being brand new. It's not an enormous game, but when a game's this fun and satisfying to play, you're gonna get your money out of playing it until you've collectathoned everything you possibly can in the game. And it is a bit more arcadey than something like something like Mario or Poi. So there is like high scores to get, and trying to complete the levels without dying, and all of this sort of stuff. It reminded me a bit of the game Tori 3D, which I played.
Yeah.
I think
I know what you mean.
And that was a similarly lo-fi 3D platformer that just focused on making the best gameplay that they could. I don't even think your main character was even animated, from what I remember. It's just floating around. But it doesn't. It proves that if you prioritize gameplay and you get that right, the game doesn't need much else to be a winner. So Lunast is very good. It's also quite timely. Well, it quite timelyly reminded me of the 3D Sonic Team games. There are hints of Knights to the tone of the game, and also hints of Knights in the soundtrack a little bit, which is quite nice. And there are some of the on rails, gotta go faster sections that are straight out of the Sonic games. I haven't played Sonic Frontiers yet. I am intrigued by it, but unless I can pick it up for less than a tenner or they release a demo, I'll probably leave Sonic on the shelf and satisfy myself elsewhere. Like with Lunasis, it's less than a £5. I put a few hours into it today. I'm gonna, I may not try and 100% it in terms of like trying to beat every single level without dying whilst collecting all the things. But there are certain secret collectibles to get, and I'm certainly going to go back through some of the levels and try and find everything. And yeah, really, really good game. Really, really enjoying that. I will fill you in on my experience with Unbox in a little bit. And that's again, a very different beast in terms of a 3D platforming game to even these two games. What else have I played? Not much, to be honest. I've continued. Thanks for asking, though. I've continued to make progress through both Slitherlink and Bloom on my play date. Yeah. Still get excited every day to check in with Midori and Bloom, see how she's doing, grow some flowers. And I'm managing. I managed to update my Slitherlink game file, which ironed out a couple of little bugs that there had been. So I've been able to change the display settings a little bit to make things a bit clearer for my eyes, which is certainly helpful on the larger stages that I'm now getting to. And it continues to be really fucking hard.
Yeah, for sure.
I have made a very brief start on God of War Ragnarok, which...
Oh, yeah, that launched last week?
Yeah, I had it waiting for me when I got back from Denmark. So far it's great. I mean, it's not reinventing the wheels in terms of developing the core gameplay beyond the previous God of War game, but it didn't need to because that game was outstanding. So I'm fully expecting this game to be as fun to play and well balanced and satisfying. And even just from the little bit I've played, it is already, meaty and chunky and all of the other soup adjectives. I really want to find a time to hook my PlayStation 5 up to my OLED TV in the lounge and just have a big, proper cinematic play of it with my Pulse 3D headset on. No idea when that's going to be, though. And I still haven't touched Mario and Rabbids, much to my shame, which I do really want to play. But then I also know Pokemon Violet's coming out next week. And I'll be diving straight into that. I know as soon as I get it. So goodness, my stack is piling high. But there we go. That's me. That's what I've played. What have you played, Chris?
Oh, well, quite a bit. After a little Discord tip-off from friend of the show, Casper, I decided to finally give Arcade Paradise a go because it had been on my radar for a little while. And we've talked about mythical games that seem designed specifically for us before.
Yes.
But Arcade Paradise feels like it may well have been designed by a committee driven entirely by the goal of making Christopher Dow a happy boy. Like, it's a light management cum simulation game on its surface. You've been given an old laundrette to run by your father, and the early rhythm of it all comes from a really surprisingly satisfying loop of clearing up the place, washing and drying clothes, yoinking discarded bits of gum off of surfaces, emptying the coin hopper from the little token machine. Like, you're just trying to maximize your daily income by doing all of these tasks in the most timely way possible. But soon after you start, you're given access to the back room of the laundrette, a sort of dank waiting area where laundrette patrons are expected to pass the time. And there's a few old coin-op arcade machines there. And the cool twist here straight away is that each game is fully playable by you as well, which will then generate more passive income over the course of the day as you complete little in-game goals. And then as time progresses, the laundrette itself becomes less and less important, and your focus moves almost wholly to rinsing these arcade machines until basically all of your income is coming from these games. They're not real machines, but they are almost all analogues of real machines. So there's a really solid Mr. Driller clone, there's a Kicks clone, there's a Missile Command clone, there's a Buster Move clone. They're all a lot of fun, and incredibly, there's about 40 of them to unlock.
Wow.
So there's a lot of game. There's a lot of game to play. And the more you have, the more money you're going to earn. The more money you earn, the more you buy. And it's just really, really good. When I first started playing it, I lost almost 5 hours in a single sitting. It's one of those that it's just
You're playing on your Steam Deck?
I started playing on the Switch because, again, I got a cheap physical copy. I was like, I'll get it for the collection. Within a few hours, I was like, I do want to keep this copy, of course, because it's going to go on the shelf, but I'm also going to rebuy it on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
So I bought it twice. Not that the Switch version is bad by any means, but it is smoother and nicer on Steam.
Yeah. I've just been having a little look at it. It does look really nice. I mean, certainly up your alley, but also I'd get on quite well with that as well.
I think you would. I mean, since that initial 5-hour sitting, I have played it for probably an hour or two each evening.
Wow.
And it is remarkably addictive. Like my favourite in-game games that I've unlocked so far, there's one called Stack Overflow, which is a sort of colour matching puzzle game that works a bit like an inverted magical drop. So you've got stacks of little coloured boxes and you're trying to rearrange them into, just a single stack of red or blue or brown or whatever. And another game called Blockchain, which is, again, a sort of dropping puzzle game where you're dropping down numbers that will only clear when they fit within a column or row that has the same height or width of the number, if that makes sense. So if you drop a 6, it's got to be in a row of 6 or a column of 6 to clear it. All of this stuff, like all of these games, is just gamified in such an addictive way. So early on, the laundry loads themselves are fun because, every time you chuck one out in a timely manner, you are graded like A, B, C or S for the fastest. So every time I was like, well, I need to do the best laundry I can for that extra $5 bonus. Disposing of rubbish bags gives you a chance to make some extra cash by like slam dunking it in the center of a target.
Brilliant.
When you clean gum off the tables and surfaces, it's done using a little like golf game meter that you're trying to hit at the top for the quickest pull.
Love it.
And everything feels quite tactile with these little micro rewards giving you just enough of a dopamine hit, even before the games themselves are then taking proper center stage. And then when the arcade itself has become your focus, you start being given daily challenges on top of the in-game challenges that are there anyway. So you've got game-specific things to do just generally, but then day-specific things to do as well for additional bonuses and money. And there's just never not something to focus on. And it's just balanced really, really well so that the main currency is starting off essentially as being your own time because you can only do so much in a day. And then eventually when you unlock a few kind of upgrades that are, permanent, sustained upgrades, you're then looking for just money and to push your investment as far as possible to maximize these individual machines to say, okay, well, if it was slightly easier but slightly cheaper, would I make more money per hour and stuff like that? On top of then also going for high scores on their version of like Breakout or whatever you're playing. I cannot wait to play on a lot more. It's really, really excellent. I've been really, really shocked by how much I've enjoyed it because I'd read a review. I knew roughly what it was about, but to actually play it, it hooked me within 5 minutes. It's one of those. And like I say, that first day, Georgia was out at work for kind of a long day, and that's all I did.
Yeah.
And then when she came home, I was like, I've got this game. You just do laundry. And then she watched me as obsessed doing laundry for a further hour. So it's really good. It's really, really good.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Also on the Steam Deck, I have been playing Tetris Effect, officially my favourite game of all time.
Yeah.
Now, firstly, this means I've now bought this game 5 times across the
That's
PS4.
more than there are blocks.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I bought it on the PS4 in a physical release at launch when it first came out. I then got the digital Switch release when I got the OLED. I pre-ordered, which I still haven't received, the physical release from Limited Run, which is the connected version of the game on both PS4 and Switch. And now I've bought it in a sale on Steam as well. I physically can't help myself. On the Steam Deck, Tetris Effect runs at a locked 60 frames a second, and basically it is going at the highest possible visual settings. Incredible. And it looks so good. I felt like I was going to cry. Like
the first time.
It's so intense. And with the particle effects pushed to their maximum, the screen is just so ridiculously, lusciously, and meticulously filled that it makes me feel a bit breathless. Like we're talking probably 20 times the detail of the Switch port, I'd say.
Amazing.
Like insane, absolutely insane. And when you plug it into the TV, the resolution will double up to 1080 or further if you want to try and push it. And yet it's still running at a visual quality beyond what the PlayStation 4 can manage.
Incredible.
And doing that with all this stuff going on, I've made Georgia play a bit of Tetris Effect before in VR, and she was, pretty impressed and she enjoyed it for what it was. But this version
suitably
on the big
impressed
TV,
to stay with her.
But this version on the big TV is the first time she's really taken notice and let out an audible wow during some of the transitions. Like, it is a truly ridiculous game that has gained rather than lost luster as I've moved year on year away from its initial release. It came out and it was a 10 out of 10, and now, I'm not going to betray maths by saying it's a number higher than that, but it's a very, very good game. Lastly, in this triumvirate of very, very, very good games, I have finally stepped away from the Steam Deck, just for an afternoon at least, to play the original Bayonetta.
Oh, wow.
And I'm massively late to the party, I know. And I've had a copy on my shelf for ages after I overpaid to get hold of a physical copy that was, for a very long time, exclusive to a very limited Japanese special edition of Bayonetta 2. So I bought it separate to all the other contents of that set for quite a lot of money on eBay about 5 years ago, and had just never given it a proper go. And now that I have, it's really fucking cool. It's such a cool game.
Isn't it?
Like, I know I'm massively late to the party, like I said, but everything from the music to the character design to the combat to the cutscenes, it's just really cool. And I've honestly spent almost my entire time with the game so far just going, yes, 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 every 30 seconds. Like, I'm sure proper action game stalwarts may well have decided the game's maybe not all that or something in the ensuing years. But for me, playing for the first time as someone that generally this is not my genre, I'm a big fan. I'm having a lot of fun.
Good. They're really good games. I mean, I haven't played the third one yet, but I do plan on doing that. But they're just like, I mean, Platinum Games, like when they're doing that thing that they do, and you essentially making you just like hammer one button, doing incredible things, making you feel like you're incredible. It's such a great feeling. You know, it's really, really fun. I'd highly recommend playing Bayonetta 2. It expands. It's a better game overall. And then I would highly, highly recommend playing Astral Chain, which I think is better than the Bayonetta games. Yeah, but I am definitely in the minority with thinking that. But I think that's partly also why I loved it so much, because nobody else was playing it. But
what a trio!
It's
rare, I think, for me. One, to play games in a week that are not like, oh, I'm playing a 50-year-old handheld game. It was only available in Russia for 2 weeks. It's like, I'm not doing that.
Sound like.
I do. That's very much my voice. But these are big games. You know, as much as Arcade Paradise is not like a big AAA release, it's had a decent amount of press. It's kind of been out for a little while. It's on all platforms. You can get it wherever. And to play that alongside something like Tetris, that obviously is a big revered release of that game, and Bayonetta, which at the time, a decade ago, was quite well spoken for as well. It's been great. What a week.
What a great week. That sounds fantastic. Looking at Arcade Paradise, I really want to rewatch Everything Everywhere all at once, and then play Arcade Paradise.
Oh, God, talk about good stuff.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Unreal.
Right.
Fortnite report. Do it with your voice now.
Nora's asleep.
Yes.
And I
am dying.
Okay. It's time to report back, and this is exciting. We haven't touched base. Well, we barely. I haven't heard a single inkling of you playing Mo Astray. I haven't even seen you pop up saying Chris Cow is playing Mo Astray, or Artist is playing Mo Astray, as it does in that voice. But I'm gonna. I can't wait to hear everything that you've experienced with it. But I'm going to kick this off, and I'm going to tell you that I really like Unbox.
Oh, I did well. Well, I wouldn't have done well if you picked Poi. But for the one you went for, I did well.
And to be fair, like I said when you sent me this, I said I've got every intention of playing both of these games. And if Poi had been as good as Unbox, I would have played as much of it as, well, you know, as much, maybe as much as I've played Unbox. So, even though I didn't have an N64, I don't really have the same type of nostalgia for those 3D platforming collectathons of that era, which really came to the fore in 64-bit, Rare, and all of that stuff. But I've always enjoyed this style of game. Like I obviously love the 3D Mario games, which are rightly the touchstone for any 3D platforming game. And a game or games that I enjoyed a surprising amount were the Spyro games. And I mean, I didn't play them when they first came out, but I picked up the remastered trilogy, and me and my wife played through them, and they were great. And they very much had that collectathon vibe too.
Yeah.
And after we'd done that, I bought a Hat in Time because I knew that was like a proper, it was basically just wall-to-wall collectathon, like too many collectibles, if anything. But I thought, oh, we'll have a great time playing that, and there's hats, and that's fun. But we never got around to even starting that. I've played like 5 minutes of it here and there, and really, Unbox has given me what I really wanted from a Hat in Time. For whatever reason, I didn't get from that. I don't really know. We're not talking about that now.
Come on.
Unbox it feels it's just pure platforming, collecting collectibles. There's not really any combat to speak of, although there are hazards to avoid, and there's a couple of sort of things that will attack you, and there are some boss fights which seem to work despite the limits of your box. But the heart of the game is just exploring these different worlds as a cardboard box and trying to find and do everything. I'd say that's a fair analysis right there. Yeah. It almost feels like an open world ball rolling game. Like the anomalous shape of your playable character is just as basic as something like Glyph, and all you're doing is moving this shape around a world. Now, the central unboxing mechanic that exists here is basically just 6 double jumps. You get a little stock of double jumps essentially, and you do have to restore these. Otherwise, you could just keep going forever, and there'd be no point in just having 6. You may as well have infinite. And you can restore your jumps by finding little collectibles or by revisiting checkpoints, and it'll restock you. But basically, I mean, you can just jump and keep jumping and fly through the air, get momentum, jump again in the air, again and again and again. It just means you've just got this like enormous amount of freedom to travel around. And like these checkpoints are everywhere, warp points are everywhere. Picking up little, bonus unboxes, they respawn. So it's just, the game just makes it just really nice and straightforward to just explore. And it is just such a delight to do that. There's so much whimsy in the design. It's bold and bright and colourful, and there's lots of just funny things around. It plays very, very well on the Steam Deck. I will say this. It looks lovely, really nice. I mean, it's amazing how nice a cardboard box can look. But spend a few nights living on the street, and I'm sure one will look good enough. No, didn't plan on saying that.
Editor's prerogative to decide what to do with that one.
Yeah. It's always just quite funny that you're a cardboard box as well. Like, if you forget that you're a cardboard box, you do have the constant reminder of your hard edges as you roll around, which makes things just a little bit more challenging than they need to be, and keep you on your toes, because you can't just roll straight down a thing. You'll be sort of catching your edge here and there and here and there. But it's never annoying, it's just kind of funny and charming. There's plenty of puzzle type elements in the game as well. There's lots of things to solve, and collectibles behind timed doors and traps and all kinds of things. Loads of secret areas that will just everything. It's just, like I said, the game just wants you to explore it, and it really rewards you for that. It's got little things everywhere. Each of the worlds that there are 12 central kind of missions in each of them to find stamps. Basically, they're your stars or your shines from the Mario games. Yeah. And these have got a nice variety to them as well. They could be like a little mini collectathon where it's like, oh, I've lost 6 snorkels, go and get them. And you do that, and then you get a stamp. Or it could be like, I need to deliver this, and it's on the other side of the island, and you can't jump. But there's loads of variety. And there's never anything too demanding that really, really taxes your brain either. So it's just a very comforting experience. Yeah. It's gentle. It's gentle and just, like I said, the game is just the developers have really taken a lot of care over, you can tell, you can really tell that the developers really value the player by the fact that they're not trying to catch you out. They're not going, that'd be annoying if I didn't put that there. They'd be like, oh no, just put it there. Just put it there. They'll need it. They'll probably need it. And then they'll be more likely to play the next bit if they haven't quit in a huff. And, that sort of level of care and attention is everywhere. And once I made a start on the game, I did message you and said, have you sent me this game? Just see what the limits of my OCD are. Because the game is just about getting everything. And, there are hundreds and thousands of collectibles across the entire game. And it is alarming how much I get sucked in by this type of game. Yeah. And I found myself really resisting moving to the next world. If I unlocked it, but I'd be like, no, I need to get everything in this area that I'm in first before I move on. And I'd while away just hours just searching for one more collectible. I was able to, eventually draw a line under the areas, move on, but certainly with the intention of going back and finding everything at some point. But I will say this, that it was never a painful or stressful compulsion to do this. Yeah. Because, like I said, it just felt really therapeutic. It's just a really nice game. I really enjoyed it. Big thumbs up for Unbox. Really, really nice. Thank you.
I'm very, very happy.
Keep poise yourself. I've every intention of leaving it on my Steam Deck and dipping in and out, and keeping on going. And I know I'm just going to really enjoy just chipping away at it bit by bit by bit by bit. Hopefully get to 100% at some point. But yeah, lovely.
I think it's nice when a game like Unbox comes along that obviously there is a gimmick in that, oh, you're a box. But sometimes the gimmick is as far as a game goes to actually be interesting. Yeah. And like you say, it's not reinventing anything. It's really very clearly referencing those kind of collectathon platformers. But it just tweaks the formula just enough to be something that makes you go, no, this is really well considered. And there's kind of a bit to this that just feels like its own thing, as much as it's very clearly drawing inspiration from places we recognise. It's a good time. Yeah, I liked it.
It is. How far did you get in it?
Probably not as far as you, because you're a machine. But, an hour or two I probably played. Not loads and loads.
Yeah. So over to you, Chris. How have you tell me all about Mo Astray? I've forgotten all about it.
Mo Astray. Now I remember you talking about Mo Astray, and at the time just not being able to really picture it at all. I don't know why. Like sometimes games you sort of give a description of it, it's very hard to visualize what it is. And I didn't Google it at the time, and it just disappeared from memory. And I think I just assumed it was probably a 2D pixel art Metroidvania type thing, because you play a lot of those. So I sort of just went, okay, well, it is what it is, and moved on with my life. So what a pleasant surprise it was that when I am now playing it, yes, it is 2D. It does have a pixel style. It does have some Metroidvania elements, but it's actually a very different kettle of the proverbial, because it's a platform game, really, kind of, a 2D platform game. You're a strange sentient blob. You move along either by inching left and right using the left analog stick, or by hurling yourself upwards or off in a direction into the sky by aiming with the right stick and then using a trigger to launch yourself. And then if you hit a wall, you stick. And the majority of the traversal in this game is about moving from surface to surface to overcome obstacles. What I liked about this pretty much straight away, I could tell within the first 10 minutes, is that contrary to the Metroidvania format, this is not really a game about backtracking. You can revisit earlier stages and levels to search for collectibles you may have missed. But instead, any abilities you gain, which might modify your jump, say, or allow you to control a secondary blob in parallel to help you solve some puzzles across different planes, they're then just part of your arsenal to solve oncoming challenges, not to kind of go back and remember where something was necessarily. Yeah. This is essentially how platform games have always worked. You go back to the Mega Drive, you weren't often going backwards. And like you mentioned, even when you played Quackshot, it wasn't something really that you were going, I remember that little block, so I need to, worm my way back there. It's just, you do levels in a slightly different order maybe. But with this sort of steadily ramping challenge, I really liked that, we've had this glut of Metroidvania-themed games for the best part of the last decade. Yeah. And it was just refreshing for it to go forwards. It was a game about kind of like just making your way through something and not having to use that part of my brain that was like, well, where did I see that collectible I didn't quite get? Or where was that little block I couldn't pass? Like, I'm not always in the mood for that. It's one of the things that kind of puts me off those games a lot of the time. Now, visually is where this game really shines. I think pixel artists have been pushing the form for years now, with kind of higher fidelity art being bolstered even further by the ability these days to have complex lighting models essentially applied over the top of a 2D game. And basically retro-inspired 2D pixel games have never looked as good as they have in the last few years. Yeah. Because people are not being forced to work just with the colour, sprite or resolution limits of older machines. You know, you can do literally whatever you want and it's fine. And Mo Astray, I think, is a real shining example of just how far you can push the form. Because despite it having a very calm, ethereal opening, I don't know if you remember just like slithering and inching along cool reflective pools under a sort of dark moonlight, the eventual horror and violence it's able to push out and convey just like 20 minutes later. And then pretty much the duration of the game is quite insane. Like a while back, I played a bit of the game Carrion, where you're controlling the horrible lab monster wreaking havoc on all the scientists around you.
I almost set you that instead of Mo, actually. So, yeah.
And as good as that game looked, it somehow didn't quite capture the quieter Cronenbergian body horror that I think Mo manages. Because you're moving through these labs, but after disaster rather than during. You're not causing the carnage. It's something that's happened. So it's closer, I guess, to something like Half-Life in that you're negotiating past people that are already dead or people that have been transformed by unknown alien things. And in Carrion, you were pushing the horror along in a sort of power fantasy way. But here, you're reflecting what's already happened and being fed snippets of narrative, either via end-of-chapter comics or stage narration or found logs. And it's pretty compelling. It's got a nice story to it. The most important ability for your little blob in this game is being able to take control of other creatures by latching onto their heads. And the art here, again, I think is brilliantly sweet and savoury, I'd say, because you've got these shambling corpses or abominations that you are driving along, and they themselves look disgusting. You know, even made out of pixels, they are gruesome. But your blob has this nice little simple smiley face, and it replaces their head as if they're wearing like a little paper bag with a face drawn on it.
Yeah. And
puzzles often need you to move these NPCs into different locations to aid your own movement, or use that particular NPC's unique movement abilities to traverse an area you'd otherwise not be able to get to, or maybe to manipulate switches that you can't access as the blob alone. And I think it's a really cool way to give you access to area-specific abilities and to solve area-specific challenges without giving you infinite power. Because then once you've lost that character, once you've moved on, then you're on your own again. You're trying to work out how to get between spaces without having that additional help. I think the Metroidvania school generally would say, now you can access these switches, and let you kind of roll along with all your new power. But I really liked how in Mo Astray it comes with that caveat that, you know, you can access these switches as long as you manipulate and maneuver a creature first. So it's not that the power is taken away, it's just the ability in the then and there is kind of pulled back just for a bit. So all these things become like keys as opposed to just outright solutions for the rest of the game. And for me, that's kept each of the little micro challenges feeling quite fresh, even when there are some really punishing sections where it's like, you know, it's taken me 30 goes now, getting a bit frustrated, but you know that the next scene is going to be just a bit different. It's very rare. You know, it's got a good sense of light and shade as you go through, that you have these kind of peaks and troughs of a little simple section, a little simple puzzle, a little jumping section, a little combat encounter. There's bits that jump around to kind of give you a good variety. When you're attached to the head of a creature, you can also reap one of the game's 2 collectibles. So in this world, there are hidden fragments that are used to provide story flashbacks and life buffs, and they're kind of just hidden in little alcoves and stuff around stages. But from latching on to other monsters, creatures, whatever, you can glean memories by kind of, I don't know, honing in on their brains, I suppose. And these are essentially the game's audio logs. So they're not audio, but used in that same way that it's like a bit of information scattered around a stage. And it just gives you a little bit of flavor text about maybe the creature's pre-transformation life, or reflections on their current predicament and how unpleasant it is to be a stinky, shambling mess. And these are then logged in a menu that frustratingly so far, have told me that I've missed about 1 billion creatures that apparently I neglected to scan, or I just missed entirely because the routes I've taken through levels. Luckily, though, as I alluded to, this is not a game about backtracking, but it is a game where you can replay from earlier checkpoints, presumably to help fill these inventory gaps if you wish to. And with all that said, it's a really great game. You know, I've said that I played 3 games in my What Have You Been Playing this week that were great. This is another one.
Yeah.
Games are pretty solid, aren't they? It's really polished. Right. It's really polished. It's got a really unique flavour and style to it. It does feel kind of different from other games. It does a huge amount with its art and aesthetic choices that I just wasn't expecting at all. And it's really interesting to read as well. It's apparently the first game developed by a Taiwanese team called Archprey. And the first game as well published by another Taiwanese company called Rayark, who I do know about because for the longest time, they focused entirely on developing and putting out their own rhythm games, many of which I've really enjoyed on mobile and now on Switch. So if you've ever heard about games like Demo or Citus, there's a few of those that have kind of done the rounds on, you know, quite big publications. Because again, early on the Switch's life wasn't that much to play, and there was a lot of Rayark games. They're really good. They're really good games. If Mo Astray marks the beginning of their third-party publishing arc, I'm really excited to see which other Thai properties could be localized, because this is a really solid game and one that will absolutely have flown under most people's radars, because in 5 years, this will be on those kind of YouTube video rundowns titled things like Nintendo eShop Hidden Gems, or the sort of 10 games you must pick up for your Steam Deck too. It will be. It will be.
Yeah. Rightly so.
Oh, rightly so. But it's sad in a way, because when you have those hidden gems, it means that they weren't given the love they deserved when they were out, you know, contemporaneously. That's a hard word to say. But, you know, it's a remarkably polished title. It expands on the platform genre in some really interesting ways. And overall, liked it a lot. So we both played fucking bangers.
Good games. Fantastic. Fantastic. Let's do something about that. And lay down our next challenge. And I'm going to kick this off.
Right.
And going by the rule that we kind of set, we're going to try and alternate between more modern games and more retro games. So I'm setting you, for your next retro challenge, I'm actually going to set you a little twofer.
Yeah.
And it's a prehistoric twofer at that.
Oh, dear.
Because, Chris... I'm sending you to Jurassic Park. That's right. My 100th favourite video game of all time was Jurassic Park on the Game Boy.
Still on the list. And
I refuse to make it budge, no matter how many better games were falling off the bottom of my list last season in my amendments. But I'm actually not setting you the Game Boy one, although feel free to play that if you wish. Instead, I'm going to set you the NES version, which is exactly the same game, but it's in colour. So it's a little more jazzy. The game is a very basic game. Each level is based around the same concept of hunting down a set amount of dinosaur eggs and avoiding dinosaur. I think. I think it stands as a really interesting example of movie tie-in game from that era. Before those games were just essentially quick time events, going through set pieces from a blockbuster film. It had to look at the film, look at what was capable on the tech available, and make the best of it. And I think it's really successful in that. It feels like Jurassic Park to me. It's got that sense of peril and survival and thrill and adventure, and a banging soundtrack by my namesake.
Jonathan Dunn.
Jonathan Dunn. I did have a play of this recently to see how it holds up, which is why I'm also setting you a second game.
I love the inferred caveat there. Had a little play, which is why.
And the other game I'm setting you is the other Jurassic Park game that I had as a kid. And that is The Lost World Jurassic Park on the Sega Saturn. And
jeez, okay, we're jumping all over the place. All right.
Yeah, we are. Now, I've got some quite fond memories of that game, despite some very middling reviews. It could be that, my love of the franchise smoothed some of the rougher edges in the game. But what I do remember is that it's a 2.5D action platform game, essentially. And you have sections of the game where you play as a human dinosaur hunter. And there are also sections where you play as a dinosaur human hunter.
Okay.
I think you start the game playing as a little Compsognathus, and then you get to play. I'm pretty sure you get to play as a raptor and a T-Rex later on as well. But again, this is a game of a time where games were still figuring out how to do movie adaptations, and also I think this was a good exploration of how to do platforming games on a 32-bit console, whilst embracing 3D but not relying on it, because you couldn't rely on 3D on a Saturn, for God's sake. So there we go. See how we get on with those puppies.
Okay, so Jurassic World and start again. So Jurassic Park and The Lost World.
Yes.
Direct sequel. Thank you, Michael Crichton. This week for your retro challenge,
yes,
you are going to play a classic Game Boy roguelike from 1991.
What the fuck?
Called Cave Noir.
Cave Noir.
Yes, a great name. That's a good name. And
that is a good name.
The game never officially left Japan, but it has had a fan translation in, I say recent years, but I think it was quite a long time ago now. There is a good chance I've already copied the English version across to your Steam Deck when we set up your emulation station. If not, I will walk you through getting it all up and running at some point this week. It won't take 2 minutes. It is a strange game, but it's one I've actually played quite a lot over the years because it's simplistic. It's simplistic, but a lot of its challenge comes from inventory management, which is quite a kind of interesting way of having to approach a roguelike. And I just think it's really quite elegantly designed to make the most of very limited hardware, but actually it's a very deep and compelling game. And I really hope you get a kick out of it because I think it's a good time.
I'm absolutely fascinated to play this. I've just thrown up a few screenshots here, and I mean, I'm all about Game Boy trying to do things that it really can't or shouldn't be able to.
Yes.
Faceball 2000,
love it.
Warlocked.
That's been on my list of maybe setting for you to try and beat in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So watch out for that in the future because that is it's clunky.
I remember emulating it and getting on with it,
Yeah, it's clunky but good, I think.
Yeah. But a roguelike. I mean, obviously it's a genre that I've never heard of when we started this podcast, and now defines me as a gamer.
Absolutely live for it.
Absolutely live for it. So yeah, Cave Noir, fantastic. Wow, didn't see that coming, but that's exciting. That's exciting, isn't it?
So yeah, just give me a shout. If it is in there and it's English, great. If not, I'll tell you where to put it on the desktop mode and get it sorted.
Brilliant. Thank you. So there we go. That was our Fortnite challenge report. Very, very good to discuss Unbox, Newbie's Adventure, and
Mo Astray.
Oh, yeah. And I'm super excited to see how Cave Noir is. And I'm very excited to hear how Chris gets on in Jurassic Park.
I love the dinosaurs.
You can stay tuned for that in 2 weeks' time. Next week, we will be offering our latest Playdate update. And we're going to be talking about the latest 2 games released, which are Flipper Lifter and Echoic Memory.
Nice names, aren't they?
Very nice, very nice. Looking forward to playing those. Looking forward even more to chatting about them with you, Chris.
Top stuff.
If you're enjoying this episode, if you're enjoying the show, leave us a review and a rating on your podcast platform of choice. That goes a long way. Share the podcast on your social media platforms. That goes a long way as well. Tag us on social media at O3C Games on everything. Go to our website, o3c.games, have a read of our articles, have a look at our videos, have a listen to our old podcast episodes. And if you really want to support us, then you can go to patreon.com/O3cgames, pledge a few pounds, and we would be so grateful. So grateful.
Very, very grateful.
You can reach out to us on an individual basis as well. I'm on Twitter at Jonathan Dunn.
I am at Chaz_Hodges.
And please do join us next week for
It's a play
date.
It's a play date.
Fantastic. Totally nice and snappy
stuff.